Just a few short weeks ago I released a video about Sela's new plans for a fan zone area here on this plot of land where I'm stood now. It's called Strawberry Place, directly behind the Gallagher end of St James's Park, and I talked about the scale and grandeur and the complexity in it, that they're going to be world class. The facilities are going to be here in this particular fan zone. As a result of that, I was contacted by an individual who of course has to remain anonymous, but they are privy to information on what the new fan zone is going to be and kind of what it's going to look like. They give me a couple of little tidbits of information about it, one of those being its name, which is going to be the Sela City Zone. So in this particular video I want to talk a bit more in detail about these incredible plans for the fan zone area here at Strawberry Place and dispel some of the nonsense as well that's flying around out there. It's coming up. Welcome back, it's Eddie here from Tyneside Life. First of all, a very quick mention, celebrating Newcastle United's fantastic season, live music, war flags, TV display at the Hunting Lodge, Whitley Bay tonight, and the Benton Ale House on the 29th of July. All proceeds are going to the war flags and West End Food Bank, and it's all for free admission. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of what Sela might have planned as a fan zone for this particular area, we need to understand who the stakeholders are and what their motivations are. Of course, we've got Newcastle United, our club, haven't won a domestic trophy for 67 years. That has to end soon. We want to be, under our new ownership, competing with the best teams in the world, certainly every year if we can be competing in the Champions League, but also in the top four, trying to win the Premier League title as well. That's where we're heading. It's going to take a while to get there because, in particular, under the stewardship of our new CEO Darren Eales, who come from Atlanta, he has to exploit any opportunities he can to turn Newcastle United over the coming seasons into that global brand, but also to exploit any opportunities to raise commercial revenue, because we will desperately need increases in commercial revenue so we can put money back in the pot so that we can compete with the top six in terms of bringing in world class players. Because in terms of commercial revenue and the size of our spending money at the moment and restrictions of financial fair play, we're way off. Of course, another stakeholder involved in this is the PIF, Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. They have an aim and a mission to grow that portfolio pot to just over $1 trillion by 2025. Currently there's around about, my understanding is, about $700 billion, an enormous amount of money. They're investing in 13 different sectors globally, not just in Saudi Arabia, varying from aerospace and transport and renewable energies and real estate and digital economies, all sorts of things that I don't understand. But 1.6% of that, only 1.6%, is being devoted to budget for entertainment, leisure and sport. And that's not just in Saudi, that's globally. So what does 1.6% of 700 billion-ish look like? I'll spare you the maths. It's around about $10 billion. Still in itself an enormous amount of money, but that's for the whole of the entertainment, leisure and sports sector of Saudi Arabia and the rest of the world. Bearing in mind they're buying up sport at the moment, not just in Saudi Arabia with football, with trying to elevate their league to be in the top 10 and buying all these footballers and throwing money at them, but also as well involved in golf and Live Golf and PGA, but Formula One as well, boxing, all sorts of sport that they're investing in. Of course, Newcastle United, so you can imagine Newcastle United as part of that 10 billion is a tiny fraction. From that budget, which is roughly $10 billion, let's put that into a real life working example. If you're one of those Newcastle fans who is utterly convinced our new owners at some point in the future are going to want to build a new stadium somewhere else in Newcastle at a realistic cost of about £2 billion, well, you're entitled to your opinion. And lastly, of course, we have Sela, the Saudi Arabian events company owned and managed by the Saudi Arabian PIF. Darren Eales did say in his video that it was a tough selection process getting to Sela. Who are you trying to kid, mate? Of course it was going to be Sela. None of us knew over here, we'd never heard of them. But clearly Saudi Arabia, the PIF and Newcastle United knew all along Sela was going to be our shirt sponsor. I'm not complaining, it seems like a perfect fit to me on paper. And if you haven't guessed it already, Sela are going to be around for a long time at Newcastle United. This isn't going to be a 4-year contract and then dump them and take on Adidas. That's not going to happen. So Sela, if you haven't already seen their video on their the videos on their website, they've got an impressive portfolio for such a young progressive company who do events and projects and development and real estate for the hospitality, leisure, entertainment and tourism and sporting events. And they're looking to expand out of Saudi Arabia. They already have with North Africa and Spain, and they've hosted events for the Italian Super Cup and the Spanish Super Cup as well. And they want to use Newcastle United to help kind of launch their global brand. So if you look at some of the properties and developments and projects they've already been involved in and what their mission is to grow globally, it leads you to one obvious conclusion, that our fan zone here in Strawberry Place is going to look like Stack. No, it's not going to be anything like a Stack or anything similar to that. Clearly, Sela have a vision to create a global brand. The facilities that are going to be here, whenever they pop up, we'll discuss that shortly, are going to be world class, staggeringly impressive. If you'd like to see more videos like this and be notified the moment I release the next one, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I think as a fan as well, we also have to get out of the notion that this fan zone, the Sela City zone, is not going to be just for match day. But this, if you look at the projects that Sela have been involved in, it's going to be, in their words, an extravaganza. It's going to be a huge family entertainment area, not just for match days, but that can generate revenue every single day of the year, and not just for football fans, not just for Newcastle United fans, but also for away fans, but also for European fans, but also for people of the city and Tyneside, but also to generate tourism interest as well. So people flood to this area every single day, spending their wonga in the Sela City zone, creating financial sustainability every day to put into the pot so that Newcastle United can spend more money on players. I forgot to mention as well is that we're looking to host the Euros in 2028, and St James's Park will of course be hosting some of those football matches. So another reason why this area is going to have a world-class fan zone. So let's talk a little bit more about the land here, Strawberry Place, and what Sela might do with it. Now, the whole land area is about 2¼ acres, directly behind the Gallagher End there. From about the early 80s, when the Metro people got in touch with Newcastle United, they allowed Newcastle United to lease the land for a peppercorn rent, which means it was being rented for next to nothing for many years. And then it was passed through various sets of hands as our ownership changed. Eventually ended up in the hands of Mike Ashley in 2019. He sold the land for about 9 million to local property developers. Local property developers, with a few twists and turns, we're going to develop 4 tower blocks in this particular area, and it was going to dominate the skyline and the landscape. There's going to be 3 student accommodation blocks, but also a hotel as well. This little car park directly behind me here, which is directly behind the Gallagher End, next to the Strawberry Pub, but also next to a huge office complex here, 3 floors of which are rented by Sky. That particular building, I mentioned Sky, a building almost the size of that could fit in the car park behind me here. Now imagine, not the height, but maybe even half the height of that. That could have restaurants, cafes, bars, all sorts of retail outlets, but also as well it could be a brand new huge Newcastle United mega store to replace the one that we currently have next to Shearer's at the bottom of the Gallagher stand. In fact, you could extend Shearer's bar into one huge long bar. I mean, the ideas are just endless. Behind me here as well, we're not just restricted to the land that's unoccupied. You can build on top of and over and encompass St James's Metro. There could be a huge glass structure type building that sits on top of the Metro, goes over it, so instead of going through that dirty entrance there, you go through some beautiful sliding doors perhaps on this lovely building that could host all sorts of things. It could be another mega store, it could be a family entertainment area, it could form part of a box park type venue where Newcastle fans can congregate, and there could be guest entertainment, for example, or that could be where the car park is directly behind me and beside the Metro. That could be a box park type venue as well. It could merge with whatever sits on top of the metro station. Just the possibilities are endless. All of this area here in the centre of Strawberry Place, covered in overgrown trees and bushes and foliage, all that will be landscaped, either to be developed on for some sort of building or to create public realm areas. There could be a central boulevard, because you can see straight down St James's Boulevard. It can be an extension of that with so you'll drive up St James's Boulevard and you'll hit this amazing Sela city zone with its lights, and just pulling you in to want to spend your money and spend some time in. So this area is going to be much more than a fan zone. It's going to be a city zone, and for good reason. Like I say, it needs to be making money every single day. I've put on the screen here a little diagram that I did. I'm not a graphic designer, I just kind of hodgepodge some ideas together. It's not entirely what I think it would look like, but you kind of get a flavour of the sort of facilities that they might have. Sela do like to have big wheels as well in their projects, so there might be a huge big wheel somewhere in Strawberry Place. I forgot to mention the Sir Bobby Robson Memorial Garden. They'll probably move that and incorporate it into the landscape somewhere there to give it a better feel about it as well. So the sky's the limit, really. The purpose of the video is hopefully just to unlock your imagination, to stop thinking about this area as a fan zone where it's only going to really be operating on match days, 26, 27 days a year, for football fans to drink beer and eat burgers. It's much more than that. Newcastle United with Sela have massive global plans for themselves and Sela. Clearly, the Sela City Zone is not short term. It's going to form part of the infrastructure and skyline of Newcastle City for years and years and years. As long as Saudi Arabia and the PIF own Newcastle United, there's going to be a Sela City Zone here, and probably beyond that if Saudi Arabia ever decided to move on. That's it. Don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and help me grow the channel. I've got a target of reaching 30,000 subscribers by the 12th of August when the season kicks off. So what do you need to do now? Why don't you watch this video which talks about some more expansion ideas.